How's it going, folks? Happy Thursday, and welcome back to another episode of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Unboxing series. Today, we're going to be going over the Spirit Charmers structure deck, which retail released on October 23rd of 2020. So about a year ago. This structure deck came out to provide extra support to the Charmer archetype. It's a set of 41 cards, and there's one of four variant R cards. There are 35 commons, there are two super rares, and then there are five ultra rares, and one of those variant cards is the ultra rare. Now, it's funny because a lot of people don't take... See, there are certain cards that are meta, and then certain cards that are for fun. And a lot of people would see that the Charmer series of cards would be more on the side of like a fun deck. It is a really unique archetype and a unique gimmick that they have in the playstyle. So I patched this so many times in the store, and I wasn't actually gonna pick it up. But I was like, look, if I'm gonna be a Yu-Gi-Oh card collector, let me just collect everything that I can. And I actually really do like. I find the Charmers really like interesting, so that's why I decided to pick it up. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Now, as I had stated earlier, there is, I guess there are variant art cards, and I'm not sure what that exactly means, but we're about to find out. But I kind of go not actually gaga for the variant art cards, but I love when Konami brings out alternate artwork of alternate versions of cards. So, for example, they brought out Arm Dragon level 7, yeah, Arm Dragon level 7, and then they brought out Dark Arm Dragon. So I really like when they kind of had put these like dark or elemental spins on certain cards. It's a little more trouble than I thought it would open. Oh, here we go. All right. So it does come with a nice dueling panel here, and it kind of has some. It kind of has some of these on there. Some. Wow, I'm losing my train of thought here. Some tips, hints, and tricks with playing this deck, and then the back is the actual duel field, which is kind of cool too, which looks like this. And it has all the Charmers and their familiars on there, which is really cool. Another really cool thing about the Charmers, the Spirit Charmers, is that they kind of have a story to it. So it's funny that Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually has like there's a lot of different media forms of Yu-Gi-Oh! There's a card game, there's the actual video games, and then there's the TV shows series. But there's actually like another kind of hidden one, and I mean I know most often it tends to be more in the OGC than the TGC, at least from my experience. But there's like a hidden like lore aspect to it too, and I'm like a big lore nerd in a lot of different aspects, a lot of different forms of media. So that's another reason why this deck kind of caught my attention as well. Because I've been watching a video one day and I was going through like the lore of certain cards, and like the lore of these cards is really cool, and then the lore of like the Endymion archetype for like the spellcasters, and then the lore of the for the hidden arsenal pack as well is really cool, with like the worms and the ice barrier like monsters and all that kind of stuff too. So let's get down to it. So it actually comes with um some super rare tokens, so that's really cool. So this is a token of just like the four main elemental charmers, which are the elements of earth, the wind, fire, and water. And then there, as we saw in last episode, there's also the light charmer and the dark charmer as well. So we have. Let me just see where the. Okay, so they're all at the beginning. Okay, so let's kind of just I'll go through the commons and I'll go through the rare cards as well. So first of all we got that really nice super rare token, so that's cool. So we have Asa the Earth Charmer. We have Area the Water Charmer. We have Hita the Fire Charmer. Now these are their base forms, I guess, if you want to kind of look at in terms of like Dragon Ball Z. These are just their base forms. Um, then we have Wind the Wind Charmer, and she's kind of special, but we'll get into that later in the video. Now we kind of have their familiars, but like the next form of their familiars. So we have Nefarious Archfiend, Eater of Nefariousness, which is a really funny name. Now he is, because he's Earth, he is the familiar of Asa. So that is her familiar. So I'll keep him with her. Then we have Gigabyte. Now, of all of the familiars, Gigabyte has probably the most in-depth lore associated with him, and it's super, and it crosses over with a lot of other like well-known cards like Marauding Captain and Freed the Matchless General. So that there's a lot of cool stuff like this is the kind of stuff that really rings true with me, because like the lore is just like a super big thing for me. And his charmer, or the familiar, is Area. Then we have Inari Fire, and their counterpart is Hita. And then last we have Ranryu, who is the upgraded form of a vanilla monster known as Petite Dragon. And you can actually see their first forms in the artwork. So with Win, there's a Petite Dragon along with her, and Ranryu is kind of like the upgraded form of Petite Dragon. So that's kind of an interesting part too. They did really well in terms of how they made the familiars look like as the charmers grew in power and knowledge. Their familiars also grew with them and changed form and changed shape. So that was a really cool thing as well. Now we have Fairy Tale Sleeper, and then another Fairy Tale monster, Fairy Tale Rella, Fairy Tale Luna, and then there's also it's funny because there's also the Fairy Tale archetype, and I think some of them are based off of the Disney princesses. So I believe it's Fairy Tale Snow White. That was a really good card. I believe she is a hand trap, which is now fortunately banned because she was so good. And now we have Witchcrafter Golem Aruru. We have Dark Dorito, which is at least visually a retrain of. Oh my goodness, it's of a vanilla monster. I can't remember her name off the top of my head. I'll try and throw in a picture of her, so that you can see it. But yeah, that like, and there are other forms of her as well, which is really cool too. Um, Classic Witch of the Black Forest, Effect Veiler, which is a decent hand trap, which states during your opponent's main phase quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, then target one effect monster your opponent controls. Negate the effects of that face-up monster your opponent controls until the end of the turn. So if you're dealing with a really annoying boss monster, or an effect that you just want to get around for one turn, which might allow you to combo further to get rid of that card, this is a really good card that you can have in your hand that you can use to negate that. We have Denko Seka. And then we have one of the new cards that are for the Charmer archetype. It's called Awakening of the Possessed. It is a continuous spell, which reads: monsters you control gain 300 attack for each different attribute you control. Charmer and familiar possessed monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects. If a spellcaster monster or monsters with 1850 original attack is normal or special summoned to your field, draw one card. You can only use the effect of Awakening of Possessed once per turn. So you have the four main Charmers kind of positioned in the artwork of this card. And it's interesting because with the addition of Link monsters, and since actually each of these, I guess their final forms would be their Link, the variant forms, similar to Lena, which we pulled in our video for Lightning Overdrive. So that this would be their final form. Now, in this case, there are realistically, if you're just playing regularly, you could get you could get 6 Charmers on the field because there are 6 attributes: light, dark, earth, wind, fire, and water. So with this card, you could realistically get a 300 times 3 times 6 is 18. So you realistically could get an 1800 attack bonus if you had one of the Charmers in your Link zone, and then you had one of each other attribute Charmer in your main monster zones. But if you really wanted to get even more crazy with it, if you did the whole connecting of the Link monsters that let you link into the other, or summon into the other Link zone, you could realistically get a, instead of 18, you could get a an 1800 power boost. You could get a 2100 power boost. But I mean, let's be real. Most people don't play to try and get all those zones filled. So that's just like kind of like a funny, interesting thing that could potentially happen with this card. So that's one of the new ones. Then we have Secret Village of the Spellcasters. It's a field effect card. If you control a spellcaster monster, your opponent cannot activate spell cards. Nice. So you can lock your opponent out of spell cards. If you control no spellcaster monsters, you cannot activate spell cards. So it's kind of a double-edged sword where you can lock your opponent out of using spell cards, but if you don't meet the requirements, you actually end up locking yourself out of using spell cards. We have Spellbook of Knowledge, which is part of the Spellbook archetype, which we'll probably see later on down the road in a future video. We have the classic Terraforming. We have the classic Book of Eclipse. And we have a staple card, Twin Twisters. So if you're looking for an easy way to get a common copy of Twin Twisters, picking up this this structure tip would be a good way to get that too. As it states, discard one card, then target up to 2 spell trackers in the field and destroy them. So it's good for popping people's back rows. Then we have the classic Dark Ruler No More. Then we have another one of the new archetypal cards, which is called Unpossessed, and it is a continuous track which reads: Charmer monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. If a familiar possessed monster you control attacks an opponent's monster, it gains 800 attack during damage calculation only. Lost what I was. If a monster or monsters you control are destroyed by battle or card effect, when this card is already face up in your spell trap card zone, you can special summon one spellcaster monster with 1500 defense from your deck, whose attribute is different from at least one of those destroyed monsters' original attributes on the field, in attack position or face down defense position. You can only use this effect of Unpossessed once per turn. So that's another very interesting card which kind of showcases the familiars, or the upgraded familiars of the main 4 Charmers. So that's really cool as well. Now we have the spiritual art trap cards of each of the main spellcasters, or sort of spellcaster Charmer monsters. We have spiritual art earth Kurogane. We have spiritual water art Aoi. We have spiritual fire art Kurenai. We have spiritual wind art Miyabi. And then we have Metaverse, which lets you search for a field spell card from your deck, which is want us to say. I believe this card is limited to 1. Then we have Dimensional Barrier. Now, here is one of these cards that so there are a bunch of cards in sequence that kind of tell the story of certain monsters. So how we have Gigabytes, there's another upgraded form of him which looks more machine, and that would be him in this kind of card here, along with Freed the Matchless General and the Marauding Captain here. So those three, their stories or fates are heavily intertwined in the Duel Monsters lore. So this is one of those cards that kind of plays into that story. So it's called this Dimensional Barrier, and it reads: declare one monster card type, Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, Exceeds, or Pendulum. For the rest of this turn, neither player can special summon monsters of the declared type. Also, negate the effects of all monsters of that type while they are on the field. You can only activate one Dimensional Barrier per turn. Nice. Then we have one of the staple Solemn cards as part of the Solemn Brigade, with Solemn Warning. Now we're getting into their next upgraded form. So we have Familiar Possessed Asa, and you can kind of see that it's Asa along with her like familiar there. So that's kind of cool how they kind of now kind of combine them together in their cards. Similarly, we have Familiar Possessed Area with her and Gigabyte. Then we have Familiar Possessed Akita, and it's her with Inari Fire. And then we have Familiar Possessed Win, and that is her with Ranryu. And that covers the entire deck. Now, there's just a couple of... actually, no, it doesn't cover the entire deck. I totally forgot about the Super and Ultra Rares. My bad. So now we're going to get into those. So now... Oh, nice. Okay, cool. So that's bomb. So that means that the variant art card that I got was actually for Familiar Possessed Win. So you can kind of see the differences. So that's awesome. It would be nice to collect all the variant art cards, specifically because they're also like a holos. But that would mean having to actually find another box of the Spirit Charmer structure deck, which is about a year old. Just a little below a year old now, because October 2021 hasn't come yet. But it's, for some reason, it's been, since COVID started, it's been almost impossible to find Yu-Gi-Oh cards sometimes. Like, I would go in the Walmart and they would be empty, and when I would go in, they would have some there. It was either stuff I didn't need or already had, or they would specifically have a limitation saying people could only buy 5 Yu-Gi-Oh items at a time. So that was kind of a thing too. And I mean, obviously some people didn't follow that. I tried to follow that as best I could, but I guess I would just go back like multiple on like different days because I am like a new customer. But anyway, that's besides the point. But I'm actually really happy that I got that, and it's awesome because it will help to play into something we're going to talk about later in the video about Win specifically. So that's awesome. So I got one of her. Then we got Awakening of the Possessed Nefarious Archfiend, which is an upgraded version of the Fiend of Nefariousness. So this guy here. So that's kind of cool. Then we have Awakening of the Possessed Greater Inari Fire, which is an upgrade to Inari Fire, which is kind of awesome. And then we have Grand Spiritual Art Ichirin, which reads: negate your opponent's first monster effect that resolves each turn while you control a spellcaster monster with 1500 defense. During your main phase, you can reveal one spellcaster monster from your hand, and if you do, add one monster with the same attribute, but with 1500 attack and 200 defense from your deck to your hand. And if you do that, shuffle the revealed card into the deck. You can only use this effect of Grand Spiritual Art Ichirin once per turn. Nice. So that's a really nice kind of effect card. It has the 4 of them kind of combining their abilities together there. Then we have Spirit Charmers, which is a quick play spell card, which reads: discard one card. Take two cards from the deck with different names from each other that are Charmer monsters, familiar possessed monsters, and or possessed spell and trap cards. Add one of them to your hand and set the other. You can only activate one Spirit Charmers. You can only activate one Spirit Charmers per turn. Nice. That's a really nice card too. Can have the four of them combining their forces once again. And then they actually put a super rare Regeki in here, which is cool. This used to be a heavy staple card, which just it basically pops all of your opponent's front row, so it gets rid of all the monsters. So that's a really cool too. And it doesn't specifically target, so monsters that can't be destroyed by targeted effects cannot actually dodge this card. So that's really cool as well. That's a nice, really nice throwback to kind of like back in the day, like with all the Regeki Monster Born cards. That's really cool too. Then our final card is a super rare Possessed Partnerships. So special summon one spellcaster monster with 1500 defense from your hand or graveyard in attack position or face down defense position. Then, if you control monsters with two or more different attributes, you can destroy one face-up card on the field. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one possessed continuous spell or trap card in your graveyard. Place it face up on your field. You can only use one Possessed Partnerships effect per turn and only once that turn. It's nice. That has a really cool kind of picture there of them almost fused with their each of the Charmers fused with their wow with their familiars. Yeah, that's it. Awesome. So now, kind of what I wanted to get into at the end, because as we know, so each Charmer has multiple forms, which I'm going to go through. Now, I happen to have the only one that I kind of have all the forms, excluding the Link monster, is of Hita. So I'll try and kind of go through her here and kind of show her evolution, so to speak. So she kind of starts off as her base summoner form with her little Foxfire Spirit there. And then after that, she gets a little bit older and a little bit more experience and becomes Blazing Hita. And then after that, she becomes Familiar Possessed Hita. And then, of course, her familiar kind of upgrades as well, and then upgrades even one more step again. And then, of course, and I'll put a picture of her up here too. She has the her Link version as well, which is, I believe, it's called Blazing. No, it's called Familiar Possessed Hita Ablaze, or Spirit Charmer Hita Ablaze, I believe. Now, the interesting thing about this is that the Link versions are all, you can get them, they're available all in different sets. Now, here's where Win comes into play. So you can get Asa in her Link version in Ignition Assault. You can get, she's the Earth Charmer. You can get Area the Water Charmer in Eternity Code. You can get Hita in Phantom Rage, but she's also available as a common in the 2020 Tin of Lost Memories, a super rare in the OTS Trinity Pack 10, and in Savage Strike she can be received as a rare as well. Now, Lena, the Light Charmer that we actually pulled in Lightning Overdrive, that's where you can pull her out of Lightning Overdrive as a super rare. Now, all of the Charmers actually have a prismatic rare, some prismatic secret rare form that you can also get in each of those packs as well. Unfortunately, I wasn't lucky enough to pull that, but I'm still nonetheless happy that I was able to pull one of the Charmers. I would like to collect all the Link version of the Charmers for that deck as well. Now, finally getting to Win. Now, Win can be received in Rising Rampage, and also the 2020 Tin of Lost Memories, which we will be doing a video on in the future as well. But unlike the rest of the Charmers, she is the only one where outside of her pack she can be found as a foil. So she can be found in the Tin of 2020, Tin of Lost Memories as an ultra rare. Now, I don't know why this might be, but I was thinking that it's potential that it could be because she has ties, connections with the Beast Tamer archetype, the Gusto archetype, at least visually and lore-wise, and the Shadow archetype. Because I think believe there are other cards. There's like because her name is Win, but there's Winda, there's Windal, and then I believe there's Windy, and they all look extremely similar to Win. So she actually may be their progenitor, as they all kind of stemmed from her. She passed on her knowledge and ability of spellcasting and spirit charming down to them as well. I found that kind of interesting that her specifically, she was an ultra, whereas the others are not. Now the other ones, all the other Charmers, they didn't really have any links, at least from what I've seen, to other monsters. So I found that interesting that Win specifically kind of has that kind of lineage, which is why I was super happy that I was able to pull her variant art card as well, because from a lore perspective, that is really cool as well. So that is it for the video. Thank you for joining me once again. I hope you enjoyed. I'll try and have another video up as soon as I can. I'm trying to put up a video at least once or twice a week, typically on Sundays, and maybe another one in the middle of the week as well. And I would love for you to join me again to help share in my love of Yu-Gi-Oh! Thanks again. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your viewership. And I will see you next time. And until then, duelist, believe in the heart of the cards. Have a good night, or day, or afternoon. See ya.